Alrighty, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Tuesday night live stream for Week 8 of the 2025 fantasy football season. Over the course of the next hour plus, we're talking all things fantasy football, whether it be waiver wire pickups, trades that you can potentially make, or of course, setting our lineups for this upcoming week. Of course, we all know this is the infamous Bye-pocalypse with 6 teams on bye. If I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head, we're talking about the Arizona Cardinals, the Rams, the Jaguars, the Raiders, the Seahawks, the Lions, 6 teams on bye, all of them out. Many of us dealing with a shambles situation because besides these players being out on, of course, bye week, we have many of injuries that we're dealing with. So hopefully we can address some pickups via the waiver wire. Maybe we can make some trades in order to improve our teams. But if you're sitting pretty, congratulations. You're one of many few that have gone or is going to go unscathed into this week, as it is going to be a heavy toll for many of us. Hope you guys are doing well. Earlier today, we did go ahead and post the top 36 running back rankings for this week. Again, many of running backs that potentially are available within the waiver wire conversation. In specific, these were the top 36 for a half PPR earlier today. Players such as Kyle Monunga, Brashard Smith, potentially Tyrone Tracy. If you're in such a desperate situation for running back depth, you could look in their direction for this week as a potential viable streaming option. Again, if you guys have, Gibbs, Charbonnet, and ETN, you're cooked this week, right? At that point, you're going to have to look towards other alternative options, and hopefully you prepared for this moment, as there are many of options to go ahead and go in that direction with. Charlene says, I put a comment for you to read. I got a bad comment. Sad. I got a bad comment? What do you mean? What happened, bro? What happened, Charlene? I'll check it out in just a moment. Let's see what happened here. Channel activity. I don't see. Oh, I see what probably happened. You probably got auto filter. There's probably a banned word that you may have used, and in that it probably deleted your message automatically, because I don't have any mods. I just have an auto system of banned words, and if you hit one of those banned words, bam, it just takes care of you. Either way, let's get into answering questions. Again, before we do so, quick reminder for those of you guys who want my all-encompassing rankings every Sunday for the remainder of the season, be sure to check out Betr. Again, earlier today at the end of the video, we put together a couple plays in regards to tonight's NBA tip-off. As you guys know, I'm very much so a fan of the NBA. I mean, I'm a fan of all sports. My Dodgers are going to the World Series. Of course, my Lakers are playing tonight. The Rams are on a little bit of a heat streak. My Chargers play on Thursday. Again, everything's kind of going in the right direction as I hope you guys are doing well. But again, if you use code Andrew, again, you'll get a free $10. But for those of you who want those rankings, got to deposit 10 and make a first-time play within a real cash play minimum of $1, picking more or less on 2-player statistics. And of course, got to be eligible within the map to the right side of the screen to be able to take advantage of the rankings, the free $10, all that kind of jazz via the sign-up. Thank you very much. Okay, let's get into answering some questions, shall we? I'm going to go ahead and mute my desktop sound, and we will scroll up here to Dylan, who begins today's first question by saying, I'm 3-4, I need some help. And in a full PPR, I'm in 7th place. Okay, so I'm assuming, considering you're in 7th place, top 6 most likely make the playoffs within your league, so you're not out of the entire conversation. 3-4 is actually a really solid place to be in. I would say the majority of leagues, you're going to see a lot of 3-4 teams. And in this current situation, as we progress, there are going to be many of opportunities in which you can pull together victories, whether or not your team is in a perfect position, because you're going to play against teams that have many of bye weeks, many of injuries, and it could provide you with just enough luck to get you into the playoff conversation. Because 3-4, again, I'd be really happy with a 3-4 record. I mean, again, to make the playoffs, 6 teams, you just need to be at, I would say, 7 or 8 wins. So again, halfway through the fantasy football regular season, 7 weeks in, we got 7 more games left. Again, pulling out 3-4 wins, going the opposite direction, going 7-7 could get you into the overall dance. Okay. Says I have Drake May, Christian McCaffrey, Chase Brown, Rashad White, JK as in JK Dobbins, Benson. We have Adams, Tedero McMillan, Mike Evans, who obviously is out for the next 6 to 8 weeks. I just want to really quickly, before I answer Dylan's question here, I want to address the overall kind of future of Mike Evans. So the diagnosis is a broken collarbone and a concussion. So the assumption is that if he's going to be out with a broken collarbone, it's the next 6 to 8 weeks, to which if you have the ability to stash him on your IR for the remaining next 2 months here, then you should, because he would then theoretically come back around week 13, 14 and could provide some value in the fantasy playoffs. But if you're like, Andrew, I'm already tight on IR spots, we only have 1 in our league, and if I hold him here, it's going to make my team weaker effectively, then you can let him go. And of course, just try to get yourself to the playoffs, because again, you may not be in a position to where you can afford to hold him in that IR position. And if you don't have IR spots in your league, because your league is playing in the 1990s, then at that point, yeah, maybe he's just an outright drop if you need the wide receiver depth, of course, for the next 2 months here. We have Travis Hunter, Kelsey. Most points in the league, but most points against. I feel like my team is in shambles. Honestly, I don't think your team is in shambles. Drake May's playing incredible. Christian McCaffrey is one of the best backs in the National Football League. You have Chase Brown, who's trending in the right direction. Rashad White, who again is going to continue to be the guy until Bucky Irving returns. J.K. Dobbins is a solid top 24 running back every week. Benson will return most likely either after the bye in week 9 or at the very latest week 10, which provides you value there. His schedule's a little bit sketchy, so I'm not too excited about that, but still, starting RB is a starting RB in fantasy. We have Adams, who's a touchdown fiend. Tedderell McMillan, who hopefully is going to get an upgrade here with Andy Dalton. Mike Evans missing some time is definitely going to hurt. But Travis Hunter's obviously trending in a very positive direction. Hopefully post-bye week, like we have seen over the course of the history of fantasy football, wide receivers, especially rookie wide receivers post-bye week, typically take an up arrow in terms of overall production. Hopefully that'll be the case of Travis Hunter. He'll have an entire 2 weeks here now to learn and just develop as a receiver even further beyond as they continue to need help on the offense side of the ball within that organization. I don't think you're in shambles. I think you're in a really solid position. Just need to go ahead and string together, 4 more wins here, maybe 5. And I think you'll be in a solid spot here. Obviously, wide receiver, you need some help. So probably need to hit the waiver wire if possible. If the waiver wire does not have ample enough production there, then maybe be looking to trade Rashad White to the Bucky Irving manager in order to try to get some wide receiver help back, because you only have Tedderell McMillan for this week, which is a little bit sketchy. Could also go ahead and look for Gadsden on the waiver wire. Could end up picking him up to accompany Kelsey for the upcoming weeks. Maybe he ends up being the guy. Thank you, Dylan. Death to Ming sends in a question. Says in a 12-team half PPR scoring format, I need to pick up recommendations because my RB2 and tight end and flex are all on bye. My running backs as it currently stands that are available are Manungai, Tracy, Brashard Smith. Okay, cool. I mean, at this point, Manungai number 1, Brashard Smith number 2, Tracy number 3 in terms of the priority order. Best wide receivers are Franklin, Reynolds, Kirk. Okay. Kirk obviously missed his most recent week with an injury. I like the idea of playing Franklin primarily because of the matchup against the Dallas Cowboys secondary in a negative game script, which will most likely be the case. Reynolds could be a value with Tyrod Taylor, but again, so could Tyler Johnson based on the fact that Garrett Wilson is most likely going to miss another week here prior to their bye. Best tight ends, we have, Gadsden, we have Schultz, we have Juwan Johnson, okay? Also, Chiefs, Bills, or Falcons defense. Okay. Many of good options here. Obviously, in terms of the prioritization, I think it becomes a matter of like, who is your current tight end? If your current tight end isn't better than Gadsden, then he would probably be the number 1 priority. Otherwise, if you already have someone like McBride and this is just a 1-week fill, at that point, I'd probably just look to try to pick up Manungai and roll him in that scenario. You could always go in the direction of picking up Gadsden in the event in which you look to potentially trade him in the future if he keeps the hot hand rolling. But yeah, Manungai, Gadsden, Franklin, those would be the priorities. If you can't get them, try to position yourself to get a Brashard Smith second. Dalton Schultz looked good last night. With Christian Kirk returning next week, is he going to have as much of that value? He played against Seattle. It's an incredibly advantageous matchup. Now he plays against San Francisco. Not as keen of a fantastic matchup, but not one that I'm completely ignoring Schultz in. So I don't mind the idea of going Gadsden Schultz. Juwan Johnson's really like a late-term add in terms of like, he could provide you value this week because of his overall matchup. But additionally, the reason why I would ever want to pick up Juwan Johnson again is because if in the event of where Olave or Rashid Shaheed get traded, his overall target opportunity increases. So Schultz will be a solid number 2 option for this week just to fill in as a startable player. And then as for your defenses available here, Chiefs play against Washington. Depends on who plays at quarterback there. Bills play against Andy Dalton. I'm really keen on just probably firing that up. Falcons taking on the Miami Dolphins. As of right now, Bills are a better defense in terms of like rest of season, but as of this moment, I'd probably feel most comfortable just roll the Falcons, play them against Tua, and hope for the best. Thank you. Michael sends out a question. Says, trade Rico, Dowdle, and Judkins for Sutton and Devontae Smith. I think it purely just depends on what the rest of your overall roster looks like. Sir, I mean, at this point, Rico and Judkins are 2 top 24 running backs rest of the way. So if you're getting 2 top 24 wide receivers in exchange, if your running back depth is ample enough to be able to sustain a trade of this magnitude, then yeah, let's make it. Let's go. I'm Gucci, you Polo. What's up, my man? How's it going, brother? Says PPR, should I pick up Tez and start over Judkins this week? I don't mind the idea of picking up Tez Johnson. Again, with Mike Evans going down with injury, with Chris Godwin and Buck Irving trending towards probably missing another consecutive game here, the landscape in terms of the Buccaneers receiving offense has certainly changed in terms of the value proposition in which Tez Johnson and effectively K. Dotton are going to provide going forward. So both of those guys should potentially be picked up. Obviously, they'll have a week 9 bye. So they'll be just a 1 week fix-in. But for a full PPR scoring format, considering, again, Ibuka is getting double covered for majority of the game, I don't mind the idea of picking up Tez Johnson and playing him this week. Do I love the idea of sitting Judkins? No, but based purely off matchup alone, justifiable. Gerardo Rodriguez sends in a question. What's up, Gerardo? Thank you very much. Says full PPR. Would you trade DK Metcalf and Quinshon Judkins to get Henry, Chase Brown, and Devontae Smith? I would, immediately. Yeah, absolutely. My other RBs are Christian McCaffrey and Dowdle, and wide receivers are Garrett Wilson, Pittman, Flowers, and McMillan. Yeah, I would immediately make that trade. Here's my logic in regards to how I'm approaching this. Judkins and Henry, just 1-for-1. Henry is the more valuable prospect, objectively speaking. I understand that Judkins has had some pretty big weeks, especially coming off of a game in which he scored 3 rushing touchdowns, primarily donated because of the fact that they're playing against the Miami Dolphins. Now, yes, Judkins' upcoming schedule is solid for running back rushing statistics, but it's almost identical to Derrick Henry's. And I would rather hitch my overall season to the wagon of a Baltimore Ravens offense rather than a Dylan Gabriel-led Cleveland Browns offense, effectively. So I'd much rather have Henry. It's not even remotely close. Then as for DK Metcalf, in comparison to like a Chase Brown, Devontae Smith, myself getting extra RB depth with solid matchups ahead, an offense that's trending upward, and Devontae Smith, who is balling out. I mean, again, as long as Saquon Barkley continues to struggle, Devontae Smith, Goddard, A.J. Brown being relevant is as beautiful as it gets. Something of a reverse from last season. So, yes, I would make that trade immediately because DK very much so touchdown reliant in comparison to Devontae Smith, who in a full PPR, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, 3 of the last 5 games for Devontae Smith. Let's pull this sucker up. Let's go. Here we go. Devontae. Yeah, 3 of the last 5 games for Devontae Smith. We're talking about 8 catches, 9 catches. PPR machine across the board. We love to see it. So, yes, I'll take that trade. Shung Bull sends in a question. Shung, thank you very much. How you doing? All right, Shung says, I'm 4-3 in a full PPR league. Team is in the chat. Okay, let's see what you have here, brother. Says, I have Lamar. Beautiful. Genty. Not so beautiful, but okay, we'll live. We have Mason. We have Henderson. Not beautiful again. We have Bam Knight. Okay, so basically you need a running back to pick up this week. Not a problem. And you have Mixon there just for the potential case in which he maybe comes back. Most likely is not going to, but we'll have to wait and see. Roma Dunze. We have Mike Evans, Pearsall, Wandale Robinson, Mooney, Kelsey, Hunter Henry. Any moves to make? I mean, as of right now, considering Genty, Henderson, and Bam are all on bye this week, I would look to potentially pick up some running backs. Kyle Monangai, maybe Woody Marks is somehow, some way still available. It depends on how many teams are in your league. But if, depending on who's available, look for a pickup for RB. Because again, Bam Knight's also going to eventually disappear once Trey Benson returns. Henderson owes Mike Vrabel money or something. Genty is unfortunately locked in an offense that is probably going to be starting Kenny Pickett in a couple weeks here. So as it stands, pretty rough situation at RB. Needs some help there immediately. Evans is probably someone that I'm trying to just take and ship off for any value I can get in return because I might not be able to make it to the fantasy playoffs if I don't get some return value there. Hopefully Pearsall's returning. Wandale Robinson's been solid since the absence of Darius Slayton there. Roma Dunze, again, very much so a touchdown-dependent receiver. And as they commit to the run game, it's a little bit rough. I would say, yes, you're in a tough position. As we proceed, we're just trying to hit the waiver wire. Like, I don't see a single player on your roster to where you can sell and get a lot of value in return outside of Lamar. You could end up shipping Lamar and then probably getting back an RB and maybe a lesser quarterback, depending on what is available. I think that's kind of the approach where you could plan on kind of positioning yourself to go in that direction. Otherwise, you just take the 25 to 30 points he's going to begin to give you here henceforth and just let that ride. But that's probably the only move that I would think towards. I'd probably also ship off Hunter Henry, go pick up Gadsden. That's what I'm thinking as of right now, Sean. Thank you. Lock Screen Gaming says, hey, Andrew. So I made a pretty big trade with my dad, Justin Jefferson, Bucky Irving, Genty. He gets Christian McCaffrey and Rice. Okay, interesting. He's going through heart surgery Saturday, so I gave him a W. Brother, that's so nice of you. Ridiculous. Hope all goes well, my man. Hope it all goes well. It will. We already know it will. But yeah, T's and P's. That's awesome. That you were able to get Rashee Rice and Christian McCaffrey in his direction. Anyway, my question is in the chat. Okay, sounds good. Let's see what we got here. Says, so in a full PPR, my team is Daniels, Bucky, Judkins, Lamb, Jefferson, Kittle, London, 49ers, and we have the Patriots defense. Okay, so your kicker and defense, you're not going to change for quite a while, primarily because both of them have, I believe, 14 buys, so you're in a really solid position there. We have Diggs, Rodgers, we have Kansas City defense. Okay, top waivers are Woody, Kyler, Evans, Waller, Tootin, and Travis Hunter. Okay, so in the position that you're currently in, obviously Buck Irving's going to miss some time until further, probably after their bye, in which he'll return him up probably week 10. Daniels is dealing with a bit of an injury here, so we are in need of a little bit of a re-establishing of like a lot of your key position players. Obviously, Rodgers is probably going to fill in this week because you didn't mention anybody else, so you can just roll with Rodgers there. Otherwise, Mariota is another alternative option for JD. As for backup running backs, you don't have any, so I'm suggesting you probably pick up Woody Marks as your like priority number one to fill in for Bucky until further notice. Lamb, Jefferson, both past, are going to be auto starts. Kittle's an auto start. London's an auto start. Judkins an auto start. Diggs could fill in once a bye week hits here ahead. But as of right now, I think you're still in a solid position as it stands. So really just try to prioritize picking up Woody Marks so you can get yourself some running back depth for the future. Otherwise, wide receivers, a bunch of studs, and we just got to get Daniels back healthy and ready to go, and you'll be in a really solid position there, lock screen. And yeah, you should be in a good spot there. Otherwise, yeah, your dad's team's looking like it's in a pretty good spot, giving them Christian McCaffrey and Rice. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, my man. Johnny Kilroy sends in a question. Thank you, Johnny. Appreciate it. Should I play Knicks with a Dallas matchup over Drake May versus Cleveland? I'd probably just play Drake May there. I think Bo Nix and his late game antics were very much so, I guess, revitalizing to his fantasy value. But man, it's still, because of the consistency at which Drake May plays at, having only 2 incompletions this most recent game, just had as many passing touchdowns as incompletions, I'd probably go in the direction of Drake May. I'm not sure if Bo Nix is going to be able to just command 33 unanswered points. No, I wasn't unanswered, but 33 points in the fourth quarter or even get close to that kind of a number anytime soon. So I'll continue to lean towards Drake May. I still acknowledge that this is a fantastic matchup, but it's still not the greatest kind of positioning for Knicks, as he's just kind of been all over the place lately. Torrin Davis sends in a question, says in an 18 full PPR trade, Judkins and Tedderole McMillan for London. Interesting. Saquon is my running back along with Henry and Scadaboo and Walker. Okay, so you've got stud running backs. You don't really need Judkins, technically speaking. To which then you will have Puka, Rice, Keenan Allen, Pearsall, and you're just going ahead and making an upgrade to have a top 10 remaining season wide receiver in the form of London in order to just kind of keep it moving. Honestly, I don't mind this trade. I think in an 8-team league, when everybody's got an all-star roster, specifically looking at the roster that you currently have, I don't mind the trade of going after London. He is already past his bye week. He's going to provide a lot more value than he specifically provided in this most recent game. So yeah, I don't mind that at all. I'll take that deal. That works for me. Grant sends in a question, says, I'm thinner wide receiver. Only player I have, thinner wide receiver. Only player I have, one player worth mentioning, Drake London. Should I trade Kyron to get Wandell and Devontae Smith in a 12-man full PPR league? So if you legitimately have no wide receiver depth and you're able to kind of sustain even in the loss of Kyron, I don't mind making this trade. Because Neighbors is not coming back. The passing game of the Philadelphia Eagles offense is really the only thing that we can grasp upon in terms of effectiveness. So yes, I don't mind making this trade at all, especially considering the full PPR format as it stands, Grant. Thank you. H. Jockish says, Fannin or Gadsden, PPR. Rest of season. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. In terms of rest of season, genuinely, I'd probably go Gadsden, primarily because the way that I see it, David Njoku is eventually going to return, and I think that is going to impact Fannin's overall potential for upside. So Gadsden is probably the play in terms of rest of season value associated with an offense that is throwing the ball a lot as of late. He's getting a lot of red zone utilization. That offense is more likely to score, so he is less reliant on having to get 8+ targets every single week, can survive just purely off of touchdown upside. So I like that idea. Opinion on Henderson. Again, I've mentioned it earlier today in my running back rankings video. It feels like he owes someone money in the facility, in the building, and they're pretty much just never letting him see the field. Now, in the event in which he's just not a good football player, sure, he doesn't have to play. But we all saw what he was able to do at Ohio State last season. He's a good football player. I just don't understand why exactly we're utilizing second-round draft capital just to go ahead and have him watch from the sidelines. I never understood that, and I still don't. So we'll see. I'm Gucci. Says I'm 4-3. Start one. Tez Johnson, Rico Dowdle, Mason Taylor, or Ricky Pearsall. I don't expect Ricky P to play. Even if he does, I would be a little bit hesitant on starting him on his first week back. Mason Taylor against Cincinnati is as good as it gets, genuinely speaking. I think in a full PPR capacity, with Tyrod Taylor playing quarterback, Cincinnati allowing the most fantasy points per game on average to opposing tight ends, and it's not even remotely close. This is 2 years in a row in which the Cincinnati Bengals have been destroyed by opposing tight ends. Last year, they were number one amongst all teams in terms of receptions allowed to tight ends. They're coming off of a week in which they allowed 11 receptions, over 141 receiving yards and 4 receiving touchdowns to opposing tight ends. The weeks prior, 3 catches, 50 and a touchdown. The week prior to that against Detroit, 7 catches, 101 and 2 touchdowns. The week prior to that, Minnesota, 6 catches, 60 and 2 touchdowns. Many of tight ends finding success. Many of tight ends scoring double-digit fantasy points against Cincinnati. So Mason Taylor with an upgraded quarterback, Garrett Wilson probably missing still. That's probably the play I go with. Alejo sends in a question. Alejo, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Says PPR, I traded Lad McConkey for Rome Odunze. Thoughts? I don't mind that. I mean, again, I think Rome Odunze will eventually get a little bit more of a target opportunity share in comparison to where they have been as of late, primarily because they've been able to just impose their will in the running game. Because, DeAndre Swift on outside zones is pretty much garnering an 8-yard per carry average. I think that's going to come back down to reality in due time. And when it does, I think the target opportunity that Rome Odunze will be exposed to will keep him more relevant than Lad McConkey, who is now competing with another threat within that offense. Besides Quentin Johnston, Keenan Allen, now you have, Gadsden that probably, is going to add a little bit of extra trickery to who can we predict to find success there. It says George Kittle or Tucker Kraft this week. Honestly, I feel like they're the same player, very much so dependent on touchdowns. I feel like that is the case. In regards to San Francisco taking on the Houston defense, I think the matchup's okay. I don't love it. Tucker Kraft, Green Bay versus Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh, if I'm not mistaken, they're a top 3 tight end matchup. I'd probably go in the direction of playing Tucker Kraft there this week. Bye week held this week on 6 and 7. 6 and 7 of my bench is on a bye. That's crazy business. But yeah, at this point, maybe you end up playing both of these guys, depending on what your overall roster looks like. But Tucker Kraft is going to be my current suggestion for this week. And I'm even thinking I might keep Tucker Kraft rest of the season. I'd have to look at the rest of the season strength of schedule as such, but still pretty solid. Akuma 817. What's up, Akuma? Says Cup Drew. Crucial part of the season. I'm 3-4, 10-team PPR. I've been streaming quarterbacks. Who should I be getting from the waivers? We have Dart, Flacco, Tyrod, Stroud, and Love. Yeah, I mean, look, as of these available, immediately I'm thinking I want Dart or I want Jordan Love. That's my immediate thought process. Now, when I think about Jordan Love, I think, okay, Josh Jacobs continues to sap away value from him on a weekly basis. So again, in terms of his overall fantasy contributions over the given week, they're not as impactful as it could be because he's not really going to throw for 3 touchdowns on a given weekly basis. Now, neither is Dart, even though he is coming off of a week in which he was able to accomplish that. What Dart provides that many of other quarterbacks don't, and the key thing that he provides is rushing upside. Having rushed a touchdown in 3 of the last 4 games as starter as this team, he is clearing away my number 1. And considering their upcoming schedule isn't as brutal, I mean, honestly, it's just going to continue to force them to score as they play against Philly, San Francisco, Chicago, Green Bay, Detroit, New England. He's going to have to score a lot of points in order to keep them competitive. And I think he's capable of accomplishing that with his legs, his arm, it doesn't matter. Dart's number 1, Love's number 2, Flacco 3. And then Stroud and Tyrod, I really just don't want anything to do with at the moment. Josh sends in a question, says, hey man, looking forward to the live tonight. We are live, brother. We are live. Trade questions in the chat. Thanks. Okay, let's see what you got here. 10-man full PPR. Looked forward, not looking. I'm an idiot. Josh, thank you. Appreciate it, my man. Listen, my dyslexia sometimes kicks in, and then it also Makes me look like an idiot. It is what it is. 10-team full PPR. I'm 5-2, 6-1 guy. Wants to give me Puka Nacua for Scatterboo and Garrett Wilson. Team is Dak, Herbert, Bijan, JT, Scat, Wilson, Sutton, Adams, Evans. Playing him week 8 and will of course lose. Also worried about depth. Well, here's my immediate question, Josh. How many wide receivers and running backs and flex can you start in a given week? If you're playing in a 10-team league where you can start 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and 1 flex every week, okay? And that's all you can do, then I could justify making the move of this capacity to where you're going to start Bijan and JT every week blindly when you get to the fantasy playoffs, to which then you would start Puka alongside of Sutton, and then just end up playing Adams in your flex. And considering how incredible Matthew Stafford has been this season, we're on an MVP-like run as of right now, you can get away with a trade like this. Now, if you're worried about depth and you have upcoming weeks in which your bye weeks are going to completely ravage your team, obviously we know that Bijan Robinson is past his bye. Adams is currently inhibiting a bye. Evans is going to be out for the next 2 months. Wilson will be on bye next week. Again, upcoming bye weeks can hurt. If they are going to set you up for a disastrous situation ahead, then you just keep it as is. I mean, quite frankly, if you're playing in a 2-2-1 league, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 flex, I probably am willing to make this trade because I'm getting back the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy and it's not close. But in the event in which you're like, Andrew, actually I could start 3 wide receivers in 1 flex or 2 wide receivers in 2 flex, I probably just keep what you have because I want the depth and I want more contributions from elite players comparatively than just having 1 singular stud. Thank you. Andrew Mitchell sends in a question. Actually, let me see if Torrin had any. Okay, no, he didn't have any follow-ups. Cool. Thank you, Torrin. Andrew Mitchell says, dude, dropped Brees in my standard league. Crazy that I'm asking if he's even worth the claim. He's absolutely worth the claim. 2 and 5, rest in the chat. Okay, let's see what you have here, brother. Says I have Brock and Mac. So Brock Purdy and Mac Jones. My wide receivers are London, Tedderroll, McMillan, Diggs, Pickens, and Golden. No tight end required. Okay. Thoughts on Brees and the team in general? I mean, the team in general, Christian McCaffrey and Swift are balling out. Chase Brown is trending in the right direction. Bill is going in the wrong direction along with the Washington Commanders. Brees, I think, is going to get some more life in his system with a little bit of a change at quarterback. In a 2-2-1 league, I absolutely am picking up Brees Hall. If I'm in your position, I'm probably doing it and dropping Golden because I don't see anybody else that I would theoretically be considering a drop because I don't know what the situation between Purdy and Mac is for this week. It looks like Mac may start again, so you'd probably have to keep. If you have an open roster spot, then you pick him up. Otherwise, I think Golden is the odd man out in the situation in which you're picking up Brees in order to accomplish this. But yes, absolutely, number 1 waiver, doesn't matter what it is, pick up Brees. Kai sends in a question. Thank you, Kai. Appreciate it. Says, I'm currently 3 and 4 in a 10-team full PPR. I have Drake May, ETN, Kamara, Rico, JCM, Vidal, CD, Puka, Dunze, McBride. I'm projected to lose every game for the rest of the season. What do I do to ensure the playoffs? Well, here's the thing about projections. If projections were true, I want you to go back and I want you to look at your games this season, the 7 games your teams has played, and I want you to tell me if the projections at which whatever website you're utilizing have been accurate in like basically predicting your scores on a weekly basis. I almost can guarantee they have not been. I don't really put much of any value into projections as it doesn't really kind of encompass the potential upside or value that a player can provide within a given week, primarily because I'm not sure the algorithm is really putting too much into it. They're just like projections that were set early in the season and very rarely change for the remainder of the year. So as it stands, looking at the team, Drake May, again, top tier quarterback as it stands, a really good position. You have the best wide receiver in fantasy in Puka. Arguably another top 3 fantasy wide receiver in CD. You have arguably the number 1 tight end in fantasy. Ardunze is going to continue to be in that top 15 wide receiver conversation. So basically what you need is running back help. And in the form of ETN with his upcoming schedule, I mentioned this in my rest of season running back rankings video a couple of days ago. ETN is a player that for those of you who are listening right now and you're thinking, oh, I have an opportunity to trade for ETN right now, I would actually suggest that you do that now while he is on bye because this is a perfect time to be able to get value out of him because teams that are in your league that are desperate because of the bye-pocalypse may be willing to ship him off, not understanding the kind of value that he is going to provide in terms of rest of season schedule. Specifically, his upcoming schedule, if I'm not mistaken, let me go ahead and write this down just so I can have this available for myself. They play against Las Vegas, Houston, the LA Chargers. Let's write this down. They have Arizona. They have Tennessee. They have Indianapolis. They have the Jets. Okay. So from until week 9 to 15. So basically, to get you to the fantasy playoffs and then subsequently get you to the first round of the fantasy playoffs, the wild card round. They play against the Las Vegas Raiders, who are the number 9 running back matchup. They play against Houston, who are... Where's Houston? The number 7 running back matchup. Thank you very much. They play against the Chargers, who are the number 6 running back matchup. Okay, so there's 3 top 10s already. Then they play against the Arizona Cardinals. Let's see, what are the Cardinals doing? Control F, Arizona. Arizona is the number 14 matchup. Still pretty solid. Then they play against Tennessee, which is the number 1 matchup. Then they have the Indianapolis Colts, which is number 26. Okay, that's their only difficult matchup up until then. And then it's not a problem because the next week after, they have the number 13 matchup against the Jets. So in 4 of the next 5 games, top 9 matchups at RB. In 6 of the next 7 games, top 14 matchups at RB. All of them incredibly positive potential because they'll be ahead, because they'll be leading, they'll be running the clock in the second half, and they'll be running the ball with him. So I'm not afraid of ETN. Kamara, I think, is only going to go up in terms of value, in terms of touches, specifically because of Kendre Miller's rest of season injury. Rico Dowdle, again, is going to inhibit an RB2, low-end RB2 potential role. JCM is going to be on and off until we can get healthy there within Washington. But until then, I'm not too afraid of your team. If you wanted to theoretically make a move, you have 5 running backs here. You could take 2 of them and try to go ship it for a running back that is either past their bye week or has an incredibly advantageous rest of season schedule. Again, we went ahead and we showed the rest of season rankings in terms of strength of schedule on that Friday video of last week, so you can check that out. Otherwise, I'm truly not even that. I'm not afraid. I don't think these projections are enough to where I'm worried about it, Kai. Genuinely. R sends in a question, says, full PPR trade Rico, Dowdle for Kamara and Dart. I have JD5 and Olave. Yeah, I'd immediately make this trade. I'd rather have Kamara and Dart rest of the way, especially being able to kind of secure a position to where if Jaden Daniels' injury is going to hold him out for multiple weeks, I can just continue to play Dart. I don't have to worry about Mariota. I don't have to worry about having to wait until the final designation prior to the game, anything of that nature. So I'm okay in that direction. That works for me. Christian K sends in a question. Thank you, Christian. Says, I'm thinking about trading Henderson and Shakir for either Montgomery, Quentin Johnston, or Keenan Allen. Says, who would you prefer out of these 3 in terms of rest of season full PPR? Well, Montgomery, in terms of a full PPR, doesn't have anything on these 2. These 2 are completely just the better flexible options, to which at this point, between Quentin Johnston and Keenan Allen, I think there's an argument that can be made for either of the 2. I think as of right now, it's probably easier to trade for Quentin Johnston, primarily because Keenan Allen's coming off a week in which he had 11 receptions. So this will probably be a pretty solid buy low opportunity for Quentin Johnston right now. Rel7 sends in a question, says, Superflex, I have JD5. Should I drop Evan Ingram for Marcus Mariota or Tyrod Taylor? I can play Chase Brown or Evan Ingram, I would assume, in my Superflex. I'm facing an 0-7 team. I do have Kittle. Yeah, look, in a Superflex format, I always want to play a quarterback. The only issue is we are not 100% certain as to whether or not Marcus Mariota is going to be available. But considering you have JD5, I would actually suggest you pick up both of these players. You should pick up Marcus Mariota to back up for JD5, and you should be picking up Tyrod Taylor in order to fill in your Superflex position. So in the event in which you can drop Evan Ingram and maybe another potential option out there, in order to secure both of these pickups, that's what I would suggest you go ahead and do. But if you could only get one because you believe the other one is going to be scooped off roster, I would pick up Marcus Mariota, as he has been incredible as a functioning starting quarterback within that offense over the course of the last 2 seasons. I don't think he has scored less than 18 fantasy points when starting for the Commanders, so that would be my priority. KLYZM says, Ridley is on the waiver. Should I try to grab him or forget him? I mean, at this point, I would probably say forget it. He's coming off of a hamstring. The offense looks like a disaster. Tyler Lockett asked for his release and got released. It just doesn't look like it's trending in the right direction. Obviously, he could provide value in the future. It's nothing that says he can't. It's just purely a matter of, is he healthy and is the offense effective enough to get him enough looks on a given weekly basis like he deserves and requires to be, as relevant as we would like him to be, which as of right now, I'm not putting too much stock into that. Says, right now my waiver priority is Gadsden. We have T. Johnson. I'm assuming that's Tyler Johnson for the Jets. Alec Pierce, Kyle Monungai, and and we have Leggett, and we have Coleman. I think that works. I mean, obviously, it just depends on what you need. If you're prioritizing wide receiver, I'm assuming T. Johnson's actually Tez Johnson, which is actually the correct prioritization. Tez Johnson should be number one after yesterday's games. So Gadsden into Johnson into probably Monungai should be third. I think Alec Pierce will dip in terms of value if Ashton Doolin and Josh Downs return. If they don't, then Alec Pierce is great there. But if you don't need the running back depth, then yeah, this is fine. Let's try to get Tez Johnson and Gadsden as priorities to begin with. Forget about Ridley for right now. Thank you. All right, continuing on, we had a question that came in from H13 Productions, who says, I'm in a 12-team full PPR tight end premium league. I'm currently sitting at 4-3. My quarterbacks being Jordan Love, running backs Josh Jacobs, Kamara, Dowdle, Woody, Pacheco, Spears, Mixon, wide receivers Amon-Ra, Garrett Wilson, Quentin Johnston, Golden Myers, Hawkinson, and Njoku are my tight ends. Bid in on Dart or Flacco. Yeah, I would bid in on Dart. Drop Mixon for an IR spot. Any other moves? I mean, at this point, you've held Mixon this long. I'm actually curious to see if they're ever going to come out with any information. Considering the running back depth you currently have, I don't think it's necessary for you to have to keep him on roster if you're going to utilize that IR spot for Garrett Wilson to be able to then go out and pick up another player so that you don't have to drop Love. So I'm okay with the idea of dropping Mixon to move Garrett into my IR to then put Dart in my lineup. I think that's a relatively solid position. I don't want to drop Myers yet, primarily because he's most likely going to be in a spot to where he may get traded. Earlier today, he was asked, are you still interested in being traded? And he says, for sure. I think Njoku could also be a drop theoretically if he's going to miss another week here. But yeah, Dart should be the absolute bid that you're going for. So make sure that happens. Thank you. Mo Money sends in a question, says, PPR, send May and Alvin Kamara for Henry. My running backs are Judkins, RJ Harvey, and Travion Henderson. I think getting Henry is pretty vital. If you have enough if you have enough quarterbacks to be able to justify this, let's hear. Ranked by priority, we have Monungai, Algier, Brashad, we have Gadsden, Mooney, and Leggett. Look, as of right now, considering your situation, I'm going to probably prioritize either Monungai or Algier, to which at the moment, I probably end up putting myself in a position to where, based on the value at which Algier could provide in terms of rest of season, I think it's probably a position to where it's a PPR. I think it's probably like Monungai 1, Algier 2. Yeah, I think this is correct. I would probably say Gadsden needs to be 3, as Brashard Smith, yes, he'll catch the ball 3 times. Maybe he'll be able to score you 6 points if he gets lucky with garbage time workload. But I don't think he's worth the start. My only question ends up being, if you're ending up trading May and Kamara in order to get Henry, to get that huge upgrade at running back, my only question ends up being, who is your fill-in for quarterback? Is that quarterback fill-in justifiable enough to make the trade, which the separation of Henry and Alvin Kamara may be assumed as we proceed? That's the only question that I have. Otherwise, the rest of your roster is relatively solid to where I'm happy with wide receiver. Jason, Amon-Ra, Rome are incredible. You have BTJ, who's been a little bit of an inconsistent machine, but just prioritizing RB here and upgrading that, as long as your quarterback that's going to fill in for May is solid, I don't really mind it. Frank Grillo says Drake May or Daniel Jones. Also, should I keep Kansas City's defense? Okay, look, as of right now, between Daniel Jones, who plays against Tennessee, and Drake May, I would like to assume that Jonathan Taylor scores 3 rushing touchdowns this week. So in the event in which that occurs, I'd probably rather play Drake May, who's playing up against the defense that is incredibly stout in terms of stopping the run. It'll force the pass. So Drake May is the preferred in terms of the two, in terms of this week's values of starting. Should I keep Kansas City's defense or pick up another defense? As of this week, Kansas City's defense taking on Washington is primarily going to be prioritized on whether or not Debo, McLaurin, and Jaden Daniels will be available. If all 3 are available, we want to ship away and go probably in a different direction. If you do have the availability of picking up another defense in an advantageous position, maybe the Bills against Carolina is a preferred kind of avenue to explore. And any thoughts on Kittle's disaster? I'm not too worried about Kittle. I think he'll be fine going forward. Again, in a game in which they prioritized running the ball, only threw it 26 times with Mac Jones, even though prior to that game, they were averaging over 40 passing attempts per game in a Mac Jones contest. It was only because they were able to run the ball so effectively that he was pretty much phased out based on script. So I'm not too worried about it. I think he'll be fine. We know that he's an elite tight end. He has been a top 5 tight end in terms of points per game for the last 6 consecutive years. So there's no question about him being elite. in due time, he'll get back to that. Easy E says, the main man with the plan. Questions in the chat. Thank you, Easy. Says, standard 3 wide receiver league. We have JSN on a bye, starting Tedero McMillan, Quentin Johnston, then either Tez, Dobbs, Pierce, or pick up Moody, Mims. What do we have? Golden, DJ Moore as my third spot. Any suggestions? Appreciated. Yeah, as of right now, I mean, T-Mac and Quentin Johnson should be the 1-2. I'd probably suggest Romeo Dobbs as the number 3 as of right now. In the event in which you do have Christian Watson returning, there may be a conversation in which we might want to position away from Romeo Dobbs, but based on how horrible that secondary looked for the Pittsburgh Steelers last week against Cincinnati, I mean, Ramsey and Slay were took it out to the shed out back and taken out there. So I think Dobbs, who's getting as much of a volume opportunity as he continues to consistently get, is justifiable here as your number 3 option at wide receiver. I think in the event in which you do have Tez Johnson with no Chris Godwin again, I think that is also a justifiable piece. Pierce with no Downs and Doolin could also be one. But for right now, I'd probably go like Dobbs 1, Tez 2, Pierce 3. Not interested in Mims in comparison. Not interested in Golden. Not interested in DJ Moore. Moody is a kicker, so I don't know who you meant by that. I think you meant Mooney, to which no, I would still rather at this moment have Tez or Dobbs as my wide receiver 3 as it proceeds in this kind of week. Thank you. Appreciate it, Easy. iShine101 says, sub Drew, should I drop Njoku and get Brashard Smith? I have Kittle as my tight end 1. Yeah, I would. I mean, in the event in which you are dealing with a bye-apocalypse because of one of the 6 teams who are on bye, the Cardinals, the Rams, the Seahawks, the Detroit Lions, Jacksonville Jaguars, and Raiders, with all those teams out on bye, if you have the opportunity of picking up Brashard Smith and utilizing him this week to help you out, then yeah, let's make that move. And you never know, maybe Brashard Smith gets an even bigger role within this offense and he pretty much makes Kareem Hunt phase away in due time. Nick Lothert says, drop Fannin for Gadsden or Otten. Yeah, I don't mind him dropping for Gadsden here in terms of rest of season. I mean, look, here's the reality of the situation. Njoku's eventually going to return, and I think the value of Fannin will effectively drop there. But I also think, like, in terms of the values that could be provided based on the offense that exists here, I think there is a conversation to where if it is Gadsden, Fannin, if Fannin stays in his own right by himself there, they trade away Njoku, he would be more valuable. But I think the diminishing value of bringing Njoku back into the mix makes me lean towards the Los Angeles tight end here. Ray sends in a question, says, pick up a wide receiver between Shakir, Mooney, or Keon Coleman. Pick up a wide receiver between Shakir, Mooney, and Keon Coleman. Yeah, I'd rather have Shakir. I understand the last time out Shakir was relatively disappointing, but if I'm going to trust in one of these 3 pieces, I'm going to trust the guy that has the number 1 association with the MVP of the league in 2024, which is Josh Allen. I'd much rather basically hitch my wagon to Josh Allen in the slot receiving utilization of Shakir. GM Esco sends a question. Says in a 12-team full PPR, we have Dak, we have Javonte, we have Chase Brown, Charbonnet, Montgomery, Amon-Ra, JSN, Adunze, Addison, Henry, and Njoku. I'm 3 and 4. Any advice? Been watching for years. Appreciate it. Thank you, GM. I appreciate that, my man. So in terms of the overall position that you're in, obviously Dak Prescott's on a little bit of an MVP-esque run. Javonte Williams is playing out of his mind. Chase Brown is trending in the right direction. Besides the fact that he has an incredible upcoming schedule, primarily because of the fact that the AFC North has an incredible schedule as a whole, I think he's going to be in a really solid position, especially when you consider they have the Jets, the Bears, additionally on top of the Baltimore Ravens, the Buffalo Bills, the Baltimore Ravens, the Miami Dolphins, the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, a lot of those matchups, very much so games in which either he is going to be getting a lot of workload from the rushing statistics, considering those teams can't stop the run, or effectively he will be utilized as a receiving threat within those games. Charbonnet, again, I mean, last night proves his value in spades. Montgomery, a little bit inconsistent as of late, but again, in comparison to the rest of the field, he is your least option. So, I mean, really solid RB kind of depth at the moment. Not really too concerned about it. Amon-Ra, JSN, Adunze, here's your hitters, brother. This is where Addison, sheesh. Basically, tight end's your weakest link, objectively speaking. So if you can go ahead and pick up Oronde Gadsden, I think that's probably a priority. If someone's going to drop Mason Taylor in your league, I'm picking him up because they're taking on Cincinnati this week. I think there's many of opportunities in which you could end up picking up a player at tight end and finding value. I think this season, tight end has been so fruitful for people who didn't draft one early, just purely based on the value that we have seen thus far as of late, and it's only continuing to develop in a positive direction. You could always position yourself to where you're like, you know what, I'm going to trade Jordan Addison and maybe like Hunter Henry, and I'm going to go try to get Bowers and somebody else off that team. Bowers on a bye, Bowers dealing with injuries, could buy him low right now and just benefit off of his return. I think that's also another plan of action that I would explore. Ahmed Khan says full PPR Sutton, Judd, Olave, Vidal start 2. In a full PPR scoring format, I feel most comfortable going with Olave here and Sutton. I mean, Sutton against the Dallas Cowboys is the automatic play, right? It's the number one matchup, on top of the fact that, you know, they've struggled mightily against the opposing wide receivers. You have Sutton, who continues to dominate in terms of target opportunity, weekly production, receptions, etc. So that's a for sure. Judkins is an incredibly difficult matchup. Vidal, again, could be a value, but it depends on if the starting offensive tackles are going to be available, to which in a full PPR, when we're talking about Olave in the week that he is coming off of with 2 receiving touchdowns, I mean, it's just too good of a position to not start both these wide receivers, Ahmed. I go in that direction, brother. Thank you. All right, so let's see here. I had Mo Money. Let me see if you hadn't. No, you didn't end up letting me know who your other quarterback is. No problem. Okay, cool. Continuing on, we had Eric M. Eric, what's up, man? Just questions in the chat. Thank you. Full PPR, I have Herbert, I have Nix, I have Bucky Irving, Rashad White, Stevenson, Mason, Henderson, Charbonnet, Puka, and Jigba. We have Sutton, Goddard. I need to drop one for a receiver. Also drop Goddard for Gadsden, Pitts, or Ingram. I mean, look, I'm not too, like, this is the thing about Dallas Goedert. He's been great all season, especially in a full PPR. We're talking about 11.4, 10.3, 19.7, 10.9, and 26.0. Yes, he's coming off of a week in which the prioritization of the passing game was revolving around A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, but I'm not willing to just, like, clip the wings of Dallas Goedert as of just yet. I mean, last time out against the New York Giants, just 2 weeks ago, had 9 catches, 110 yards, and a touchdown. He plays them again this week. So why not fire him up once again within the matchup? If you were theoretically going to drop someone, genuinely, your drop is Henderson if you're going to pick somebody up, because he has evidently no value within that offense. Bucky, Rashad White are going to be relevant rest of season. Stevenson is outright the starter. Mason is outright the starter. Charbonnet is a fiend down near the red zone. He's going to score double-digit touchdowns this year. I mean, it's happening. Njoku, Njigba, Sutton cannot be replaced. So Henderson is your odd man out, because I'm not willing to cut Herbert or Nix, because genuinely I think both of them have enough value to where you could, with an upcoming bye week here, utilize them as the 1A, 1B, or end up shipping them off if Nix continues to play well. So that's the play. If you're looking for a receiver, Hendo gets the cut, which is crazy to say, but it is the reality of the situation. Duro Modi says, Drew, I need some help in a 12-team league PPR double flex format. Stafford is my quarterback. Hampton, Judkins, JCM, and Warren are my running backs. Jamar Chase, St. Brown, Rice, McMillan, and Kraft got offered Mahomes and Dobbins for Judkins and McMillan. I'm leaning towards it. I mean, here's my thought process on the matter. Obviously, Mahomes is clearing away the number 1 quarterback in fantasy, and I don't think there's really any discussion there, just based on the fact that they have just been scoring like madmen as of late. So, in terms of his value in comparison to Matthew Stafford in a 4-point per passing touchdown league, obviously, because of the rushing upside that effectively Mahomes is providing, there is a relatively solid gap there in between the two. But is it worth shipping off Judkins and McMillan in order to accomplish this? Well, you have Chase, St. Brown, Rice. So that means whenever your team is at a full capacity, you'll never really ever play. Well, I mean, McMillan would theoretically fill in as a, you know what? No, if I'm looking at your team, I don't know if I make this trade. Because here's my thought process. Hampton's not coming back until probably week 11 or 12. If at best case scenario, because they said his injury was going to take most likely beyond 5 weeks. So if I look at the overall schedule of since he's been out, he's only been out 2 weeks. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 5. He'll be back week 11. Then he has a week 12 bye. So there's a possibility in which they're like, you know what? Instead of forcing him back by week 11, we'll wait until after the bye and he returns week 13. To which, if that is the case, if you lose Judkins, you'll have JCM, who is unreliable at the moment, Warren, who is great in a full PPR, and Dobbins right now. I'd be a little bit sketched out about that kind of positioning. I don't mind it though. I think I'd for sure rather have Judkins on roster rest of season than Dobbins. And am I willing to go ahead and make that separation about? I think I keep what you have, genuinely. That's the way that I'm seeing it. If you want to make the trade, you can. I think McMillan is only going to get better. I think Judkins is more valuable than Dobbins. And yes, Mahomes is playing out of his mind right now. But if those rushing statistics begin to disappear a little bit for Stafford, if they begin to disappear for Mahomes and he stops running the ball, primarily because he's trying to conserve himself, just like this most recent week where he had 28 rushing yards, if he's going to have his humble weeks there to where he is just very kind of quiet in the rushing capacity, I think Stafford will be just as good, considering Stafford has just, as of late, been a 3-touchdown monster. And I think can probably continue that kind of pace based on the talent that surrounds him. But if you want the trade, go for it. Personally, I think I'd rather keep the depth as currently provided. Darth Raider says, Waddle and JCM for Dobbins and Booty. I would rather have Waddle and JCM. I don't want Booty. I'd rather have Waddle last season, and I'd rather have JCM over Dobbins, most likely, but still could be arguable that they're equal value. So I just rather have the Waddle side because I prefer him in terms of rest of season production. Jeremy Melendez says, trade Adams for Barkley. I'm in a 12-team full PPR, currently in third place with the most points scored. I also have Rome Odunze, Devontae Smith, Wan'Dale Robinson, and Jamar Chase. My running backs are Kyron and Dobbins. In the event in which you can make a trade in which you're sending away Adams, I would rather legitimately go get Derrick Henry. There are many of running backs that I would rather have in this overall kind of circumstance to where you are making a trade of this caliber, to where, yeah, that's kind of my current thought process. Like when I look at my rest of season running back rankings from Friday and I look at the running backs in that kind of singular tier, I think Jahmyr Gibbs probably moves up a little bit. Devon Achane goes down a little bit. Like if I'm going to move Adams in a full PPR, I'd probably rather have Achane or Cook or Henry in comparison to Barkley. I'd maybe even rather, I think that's maybe I'd rather have Scatterbo or Javonte Williams. Genuinely, I'm beginning to be a little bit curious as to whether I'd go in that direction. So for now, if you can't get, an Achane, a James Cook, a Derrick Henry, if Javonte and Scat aren't available, then sure, we can go in that direction. Thank you. Aaron Northcutt says, I lost Hill and Evans. Puka is on a bye. Do I keep DJ Moore in my lineup or pick up Tez Johnson, Booty, and Pierce? Got to start 2. Gadsden, Jonnu, Hawkinson, pick 1. Yeah, I'd rather have the Los Angeles tight end as of this week. In regards to picking up a wide receiver, Tez Johnson would be great. I think Kayshon Booty would also be great. Alec Pierce's value very much so contingent on the health of the other receivers in that offense. If Josh Downs and Ashton Doolin are back, I think his overall role diminishes. So for right now, am I keeping DJ Moore ahead of these two in the lineup, specifically playing against the Baltimore Ravens this week? I don't really trust DJ Moore. I don't think I've seen anything out of him to trust it, so I'd rather just play Tez Johnson and Booty as of this week and pick up Gadsden. I think that's probably the direction I go in, Aaron. Thank you. Shad says, should I try to move on from anyone? In a full PPR, we have Olave, Higgins, Teteroa, Caleb Williams. Caleb is the one that you go away from. Rashad, Brees, Genty. Caleb is immediately, like, my thought process is we need to go ahead and improve on quarterback, considering he has just been handing off the ball for 2 consecutive weeks here. So in an 8-man league, I'm sure there are probably some better quarterback options. Maybe Jackson Dart is out there. As for Rashad White, Genty, and Brees, we got a lot of troubles here. And I really doubt that anybody's going to give you an upgrade at running back in the form of sending away Genty for it. Might try to go and knock on the door of the Travis Etienne manager. I think that should probably be your first plan of action as we proceed here, Shad. Thank you. Juice Fino says, Mooney, Downs, Shaheed on the waivers, full PPR, who do I get? Ooh, that's a very interesting question. I think it depends on whether you're asking me for this week or for rest of season purposes. Because if you're asking me for rest of season, I'd rather have Rashid Shaheed, primarily because we have heard many of rumors regarding the New Orleans Saints potentially being sellers at the trade deadline and shipping off either Chris Olave or Rashid Shaheed in order to get some picks in return for the future. So in the event in which Olave has secured himself as the wide receiver 1 and interest comes in from teams that are in need of a wide receiver 2, such as the Steelers or the Buffalo Bills, who are in need of services from a Rashid Shaheed, he could immediately gain value by going to that organization. Or subsequently, in the event in which Olave is sent away, he would become the number 1 wide receiver of this offense, where there is effectively a lot of value to be had there. So Shaheed will be the guy that's number 1. I would then probably argue to say, for right now in a full PPR, Downs is 2 and Mooney's 3. Thank you. Jonathan sends in a question, says, half PPR, how much fab for Pacheco? It depends on how much you have. Says, I'm in a half PPR. Someone in my league dropped Pacheco. Should I pick him up? And if so, how much fab do I spend? I have Kamara, Christian McCaffrey, Tyler Algier, and Aaron Jones. Well, technically, I would pick him up because he's a starting running back in the National Football League. And anytime you have the opportunity to pick him up, when you do have an upcoming bye week here, effectively for someone like Kamara, I mean, obviously Christian McCaffrey doesn't have a bye until week 14, but Pacheco could provide enough value in the form of where he could be a valuable piece. Am I emptying the fab clip? Probably not, because again, the running back position, specifically in the form of a Isaiah Pacheco, needs to score touchdowns to be reliable, and he's not going to score too many considering the game or the specific offense is not very much so predicated on running the ball. So I'm willing to rip 20%, 25%, maybe even 30% because by me getting him, I know that other teams in my league won't be able to utilize him against me. So I'm okay ripping that kind of a volume for a starting running back rest of way. Some people would argue you should rip 50%. Some would argue the rest. But Pacheco, I mean, yes, he's coming off of a solid week. But touchdowns are not a consistent part of his game, which makes it also very much so dangerous because you won't be able to start him every week going forward. Gerardo says, hola, Andrew. Please, on chat, wrote... Okay, sounds good, Gerardo. Thank you. Should I drop Rodriguez and Bam Knight for Leggett and Gadsden? Dynasty, half PPR, 8-team league. Looking for future value. If somehow, how much do I offer max for each? I have 780 out of 1,000. Okay, so as of right now, I would be willing... Okay, so I would be willing to drop probably Rodriguez... Actually, no. Both of them should be dropped for Leggett and Gadsden under the assumption that Bam Knight and Chris Rodriguez do not provide any starting piece to your lineup. So, yes, I'd be willing to rip for both. I mean, Leggett is a former first-round selected wide receiver. He could be a trade target at the end of this upcoming deadline here. Gadsden, again, is starting to trend in the right direction for his career. I mean, with 780, I legitimately would rip... I want to rip more than 10%. I'd be willing to rip over 100. Well, look, in a typical weekly basis, like genuinely right now, if this is a dynasty, I'd actually be willing to rip 200, maybe 250 for Gadsden. Maybe even more, maybe 300. That's kind of the direction I'm leaning in because I think to myself, this far into the season in a dynasty league, the fact that he's available leads me to believe that no one else has anything available on the way. I mean, it's an 8-team league, so maybe there's a lot available. But considering the dynasty format of it, I'm thinking if I can have him and he's going to be a guy for the future, he's a former wide receiver, very athletic build, pretty much reminds me of Darren Waller in terms of his ability to line up out wide in the slot, doesn't matter. I'd be willing to rip 200 to 300 on him because of the dynasty prospect of it. And then as for Leggett, maybe 50, maybe 5% of the remainder, you know? Thank you. No Love Matt says, 8-man, half PPR, I need 2 flex. We have Ladd McConkey, Breece Hall, Vidal, and George Pickens. Okay. So in this current circumstance, in a half PPR, going into the given week, Minnesota matchup, do I like it for Ladd McConkey? I'm not in love with it because there's a lot of threats with it. Honestly, as of this moment, I'm leaning towards... It depends on how much. Let me see here. One moment. I'm curious how much of the overall route contribution of CeeDee Lamb exists within the slot position. I know it's a relatively high clip, specifically from his wide receiver 1 season. Let's see where he ended up looking at this week. So he played about 35%, or he ran 35% of his routes from the slot position this most recent week, 13 of his overall 33. So in the event in which he is out wide in any capacity, he's going to see Mr. Surtain. And when that happens, George Pickens versus Riley Moss, I'd rather have George Pickens. I'm thinking Breece Hall and George Pickens at the moment. I could change my mind, but that is my immediate thought because I think both the offensive tackles for Vidal is going to be out. I think Ladd McConkey's just got a lot of competition. So Breece and GP are my current thought process. Says I have Mason, Buka, AJ Brown, Warren already. Also, I have Baker or Herbert. If I'm thinking about Baker versus Herbert, Baker versus New Orleans or Herbert versus... I'd probably go with Herbert there. Thank you. Alex99 says trade Lamb, Judkins, and T. Higgins for Henry, London, and Olave. Interesting trade. I think it's relatively equal in terms of... Let me see here. My running backs are Henry, Javonte. Wide receivers are London, Nico, AJ Brown, and my flex is Olave. Oh, okay, so I see what's happening. So you would be trading away Henry, London, and Olave to get Lamb, Judkins, and T. Higgins. So you would effectively at running back have Judkins and Javonte. And then at wide receiver, you'd have a London. No, you'd be shipping London and Olave. So you'd have Nico, AJ Brown, Lamb, and T. Higgins. If it's a full PPR, man, you know what? I think I like... Look, here's the thing. CeeDee Lamb is so valuable in a full PPR. He could genuinely be top 3 rest of season wide receiver. And that is so appealing. But when I look at like the cast of players here, I think I keep. If it's a half PPR, I just objectively keep. If it's a full PPR, I can justify it. I'd say it's an even trade and you can make it. But I think I want to keep. Thank you. Andrew Mitchell says, done with Marvin Harrison Jr. Pick up Booty, Pierce, or Burden. If I was going to pick up one of them, I'd probably pick up Kayshon Booty first. Thank you. Let's see here. Trying to catch up slowly but surely. Appreciate it. Holocard says, I'm currently 3-4. Did some trades today. Quarterback Baker and Dart. Running backs are Bucky, Warren, White, Scat. Wide receivers are London, AJ Brown, Sutton, Waddle, Nico, and Jake Ferguson's my tight end. I think you're in a really good spot. It says I traded Kelsey and Barkley for Jake Ferguson and AJ Brown. Good trade. I would say that's a fantastic trade. Jake Ferguson is lightly years ahead of Kelsey, and Barkley's value is diminished so far that yes, AJ Brown is the better of the two. Andrew, my question is there any players I should target? As of right now, if you have the ability to go and buy low on ETN, that's what I'm suggesting as of this week. Thank you. Last week was Derrick Henry. This week is ETN. I mean, shoot, Derrick Henry could still be a buy low, but it depends on if, obviously he's not on buy, so it's a little bit more difficult to get him on roster. False Prophet says I got offered Gibbs, Kittle, and Sutton for Genty, Rice, and Tyler Warren. Okay, so looking at this objectively speaking, Gibbs is ahead of Genty by a pretty big margin. I think Rashee Rice is ahead of Sutton in terms of rest of season value by a pretty good margin. And I think Tyler Warren and Kittle could be identical value rest of the way. But obviously the advantage is towards Tyler Warren because of the health of not only himself, but also the quarterback position, to which right now, I honestly think this is an even trade, genuinely. I don't mind the idea of taking these three. I think Kittle will legitimately be just as good as Tyler Warren in terms of rest of the season value, purely because of touchdowns, not because of target opportunity, but because of touchdown opportunity he'll effectively be exposed to. So if you're comfortable with it, I am down taking these three. No Love Matt says another one full PPR, Shaheed or Worthy in the flex. That's an interesting one. Shaheed or Worthy. I'd probably rather... I'll lean towards Worthy still for right now. As long as that offense continues to score 4 touchdowns a game like they have for 4 consecutive weeks, just the opportunity of scoring a touchdown for Worthy is just going to be available. Aaron Northcott says New England, Tampa Bay, Atlanta, Fairbairn, or Butker. I'd rather have Fairbairn. And between New England, Tampa Bay, and Atlanta, if we're talking about the potential upside that these specific defenses provide this week, New England against Cleveland is just the auto start in my mind. I think Tampa Bay is another great option. So is Atlanta. But I think New England is probably the go-to. New England number 1, Atlanta 2, Tampa Bay 3. Thank you. AP sends in a question. Says, in a PPR, in deep trouble in a 12-team league, which starts 3 wide receivers? I've got Justin Jefferson, Evans, J-Mo, LCM. I'm assuming that's Ladd McConkey, Coker, Jaden Higgins. I mean, Justin Jefferson starts. Ladd McConkey has to start, and then you pretty much have Mr. Volatility, Mr. I'm not going to be valuable. You can drop Coker genuinely. Unless something changes there, you can drop him. Jaden Higgins. Okay. On the waivers, we have Coleman, Leggett, Franklin. Was that Josh Reynolds? We have Turpin. We have Zacchaeus prioritization for rest of season. Well, in terms of rest of season value, I think it's probably, there's an argument to be made either Coleman or Franklin rest of the way, to which as of right now, I'd probably lean towards Keon Coleman number 1, Franklin number 2. That's what I would try to pick up. I'd be willing to drop Jaden Higgins and Coker to accomplish this. Coker is pretty much inhabiting the entire role in which basically Hunter Renfrow has been sustaining for the entirety of the season thus far from weeks 1 through 6. And though there have been weeks where, of course, Hunter Renfrow was a value, unfortunately, the slot receiving position is not a priority of this offense as in its current iteration, primarily because they want to run the ball more and they want to utilize a lot of 12 personnel sets. Again, when we look at the Carolina Panthers overall snap counts from their tight ends, they're trying to keep as many tight ends on the field as possible because they have a bunch of tight ones. Again, Tremble, Jatavion Sanders, Mitchell. Again, this is most recent week. We saw Sanders play 26 snaps, Mitchell Evans played 31 snaps, and Tommy Tremble played 47 snaps, in comparison to Jalen Coker, who only played 26 total. Again, effectively, they are a run-heavy team, double tight end, triple tight end sets. Coker and Higgins can be dropped. Let's prioritize Coleman number 1, Franklin number 2, Leggett 3, Zacchaeus 4, Reynolds 5, Turpin 6. Thank you. All right. We had a question from Slurms who says, is this a fair trade in a full PPR? Drake London for Jordan Mason, Kyle Pitts, and Tez Johnson. Would be adding DJ Moore be too much? Team needs depth. So basically you'd be giving Jordan Mason, Pitts, Tez Johnson. Wait. So yeah, you're trading for Jordan Mason here. It says, would adding DJ Moore be too much? No, I mean, DJ Moore puts up 5 points a week. So if you add DJ Moore to this, it's not a big deal. Not at all. If you need depth, you make it happen. I think that I'm okay with. Because again, if you're dealing with like bipocalypse or injury disaster, bringing in some contributors to at least help you win is always the right thing to do. Roy Shaver says, evening, Andrew. I need a bipocalypse help. Literally half my team is on bye. Genty, Amon-Ra, K9, David Montgomery, and JMO. It's a 10-team half PPR. Still 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers / tight end flex. Okay. Starting May, Spears, Algier Shaheed, Tyler Warren, Wanda Robinson. Herbert is on the bench. Questions in the chat. Okay. Says available on the waivers are Gadsden, Kraft, Pitts, Otten, Kincaid, Shakir, Mooney, Leggett, Watson. Wow, you got a really good opportunity of picking up some good options here. You're 5-2 third place, number 8th in terms of priority. Okay. Drop Spears or Algier for Rashard Smith or Manungai or RJ. Yeah, I'd be willing to drop Spears just in order to pick up either Manungai and or Rashard Smith. I think either of those two are more valuable this week. But I think in terms of the overall position in which you're currently existing within, looking at the roster on hand, I would like to position myself to maybe even pick up. I think Kraft needs to be picked up and started. I think there's a possibility in which when I look at your wide receivers and you have currently Wandale Robinson, Tyler Warren, Shaheed, I think there's an argument to where, yeah, I'd rather play Kraft in a half PPR over Shaheed, and I just play like Kraft, Warren, and Wandale this week. And then I'd pick up Manungai in order to play him over Spears. That's kind of the direction that I'd go in this week. Thank you. Okay, Alec Master says, drop Kincaid, Pitts for Gadsden, or Corum for Tez. Corum for Tez is perfectly fine. Corum only plays in garbage time rushing opportunities. Kincaid, Pitts for... as of right now, I don't mind the idea of dropping Pitts for it. That works for me. But Kincaid, I think, keeps on roster because of the touchdown upside he provides. Drewski says, good evening, my brother. In a full PPR 12-man league, 6 point per touchdown, streaming quarterback because of injuries, rank these for this week. Mac Jones, Mariota, with Flacco, Aaron Rodgers. Okay. In a 6 point per passing touchdown format, Flacco would be number 1, to which I would then probably position myself to go. I kind of want to play Mac, but look, that Houston defense is a lot sketchier. I go Flacco 1, Aaron Rodgers 2, Mariota 3, Mac Jones 4. Flacco 1, Aaron Rodgers 2, Mariota 3, Mac Jones 4. Yeah, that's how I'd go. Thank you. Aaron Northcote says, Herbert or Jones this week? I'd rather play Justin Herbert. Pitts or Ferguson? I'd always rather play Ferguson. Oni sends in a question. Thank you, Oni. Says, in a 12-team PPR, Lamar Jackson, Stafford, Bucky, Harvey, Judkins, Charbonnet, K9, Spears, Tyler Warren, Lamb, Adunze, Shakir, Worthy, Pure Salt, Hetero, McMillan. I'm 6-1. Should I stand down or make some trades? Tried to move Sharps and Kenneth Walker. I mean, if you can move those two, that would be pretty solid. In the event in which you can potentially trade for running backs like an ETN, I think that would be definitely something that I'm trying to accomplish this week because of a bipocalypse. Maybe they're more desperate for a win. They could be able to ship that off in your direction. That's my immediate thought process. In regards to other players that you could theoretically also buy low on, I think there could be an argument to where you go buy low on Zay Flowers. Because once Lamar's back here this week, I think he's going to be a little bit more valuable than he currently is, to which there's going to be a lot of potential there to where he could play alongside a Lamb and a Dunze here, and you might only need to be giving away, like, you might not have to give away much in order to accomplish that. So those are the two names that I'll throw out for right now in terms of potential moves that you can potentially explore. Ask. If no one bites, keep it rolling because you've got a really solid team here with depth. Okay, Harmon sends in a question. Says, hey, Andrew, questions in the chat. Thank you, Harmon. Hey, Andrew, hope you're doing well. I am. Thank you for asking. Appreciate that. Half PPR, 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 2 wide receivers, and 2 flex. Okay, cool. 1 running back's very interesting. Should I trade my Scatterbo and Chase Brown for Barkley and Hall? No, I wouldn't. Genuinely, I wouldn't. I think at this point, Scat versus Barkley, I think is relatively even value. Chase Brown versus Hall, I think that's relatively even value. If you want to, you can take this trade, but I look at this offense for the Jets and I think, man, do I really want to hitch my wagon to an 0-7 offense? No. If he gets traded, it changes the entire dynamic. As for Barkley, I mean, it's just not trending in the right direction. Like, they cannot effectively run the ball. When you're averaging 2 yards per carry, it's just too difficult to trust in. I'd rather just have these two. I'm going to try to add Daniel Jones for the Hurts as well as, but I'm not sure if he'll accept. Try to add my Daniel Jones for his Hurts. You could try that. Genuinely, I'd rather keep Scat. It's crazy, but that is just the reality we live in at this point with 2025 being the way it is. Nathan Salazar, what's up, man? Says full PPR trade Goff and Pacheco for Daniel Jones. That's fine by me if your running back depth can survive it. H13 Productions says, I'm currently 1-6. Okay, so basically you have to win out. So before I even read your question, in every single scenario, if you have a player on bye, they must be traded in the given week. If JD5 is not going to play this week, trade him. That is genuinely the overall situation. Considering you're playing in a 10-team league, and I'm assuming 6 teams are making the playoffs, you need to win 6 of the next 7 games here, minimum. So let's see what we have here. I lost James, Connor, Tyreek Hill, and Trey Benson. Okay. Now JD5 and Waller. Nobody wants my players. Only Egbuka or Chase Brown for scraps. Understood. JD5, Henry, Chase Brown, Montgomery, Dowd. Oh, you're not even in that bad of a situation here. I'm looking at this team and I actually think you're okay. Like, genuinely speaking, like right now, Waller, I'm just dropping him outright, and I'm going to get Gadsden. And I'm pairing him up with Kelsey going forward. Looking at wide receiver, like Abuka and QJ are great. Once the bye week for Abuka comes along, I'm shipping him then. But that's pretty much what I would do. Like in a 1-6 position, if maybe 8 teams make the playoffs, you don't have to do these crazy radical trades every week. But once you get into the bipocalypse position to where a bye week knocks out Abuka and knocks out, Quentin Johnston, on those weeks, I'm shipping them away for lesser players. I don't care if I'm getting scraps. I need to win outright, unless you're just trying to forfeit a one singular week and then keep it pushing. Unless you think like, Abuka and Dobbs can win you that week in the event in which Quentin Johnston's out or vice versa. But right now I'm looking at the team and I'm actually not, like I'm picking up Mariota, I'm picking up Gadsden, I'm dropping Waller. If Benson's sitting in your IR, you get him back next week, which is fine. In order to probably try to pick up the potential of a Mariota, or maybe let's say Dart is out there available in your league, I'd be willing to drop JMO in order to accomplish that. That works for me. Those are the immediate thoughts at the moment, but I think there's a lot of hope still left within this team. The man 0906 says, Andrew, I have a quarterback, Nix and Goff. Running backs, Jacobs, Judkins, Chase Brown, Vidal, Isaiah Davis. My wide receivers are Sutton, JSN, Higgins, Wandell Robinson, Ferguson, and Kraft. Should I feel good or look for a trade? Thanks for the help. in terms of quarterback, I think you're fine. I mean, they're not world beaters, but hopefully Knicks is going to continue to string together some big performances here. Running back, I'm pretty happy with these three. Vidal is a fleeting commodity, and Davis is pretty much a lottery ticket. Sutton is great. JSN is incredible. Higgins is trending in the right direction. Wanda Robinson is playing out of his mind. Kraft and Ferguson are incredible. So unless you're going to keep, let me see what the upcoming schedule is. NFL bye weeks. I know Kraft has already passed his bye week. I'm curious when Ferguson has his. So the Dallas Cowboys go on by week 10. So you can pretty much either hold Kraft for right now, or you ship him off and try to get as much value as you theoretically can, considering he's coming off of 2 solid weeks here. In the event in which you can't ship him off, maybe you're taking Kraft and you're taking Chase Brown and you're going to trade for a running back, ETN, cough, cough. Derrick Henry, cough, cough. Thank you. Aaron Northcutt says, Addison, Flowers, Keenan Allen, Panthers running backs, Worthy, Diggs, and Tez Johnson. I need 2 wideouts and 2 flex. Okay. So in the event in which this is the case, man, I don't really love the idea of playing, especially if it's a full PPR. I'd probably just go like Diggs, Addison, Flowers, Keenan Allen, and those would be the 4 that I play. I don't really know if I want to play either of the running backs for the Panthers this week. As advantageous as the matchup presents itself to be, in a full PPR, these other guys are studs. In the event in which it's not a full PPR, let's say it's a half PPR, I could justify playing like Rico maybe over one of these guys, but even then, I still don't think I do it. Patrick, 510, what's up, man? Says half PPR, my Rashee Rice, and DeAndre Swift for Henry and Pickens. I'm cool with that. That works for me. That works for me, especially considering it's a half PPR. Roy Shaver says drop Spears and Algier for Rashad White, Monungai, or RJ Harvey. Yeah, it would be Spears for Rashad. It would be for Monungai specifically, if you can. Ramen God says drop Pearsall for Hunter. I don't mind that at all. I'll take Travis Hunter rest of the way. Let's see here. Zerby says PPR, my RB2/3 are Mason and Kenneth Walker. Do I trade my wide receiver for Keenan Allen for Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt? I have Dak, Baker, May. Okay, so is this a 1 QB league? One of these guys got to go. Like, if one of them has got to be traded. Dak or May have to be traded. 1 quarterback league, Kittle, Ferguson. Wow, one of these got to be traded as well. You know, instead of potentially making a move to where you're having to ship a wide receiver for a running back, maybe you keep the wide receiver depth. Yeah, and this kind of a trade a little bit more understandable. Am I moving Dak and Jake Ferguson for Javonte Williams? I don't love it because you're giving away so much value. But I can justify it just purely based on RB need and what the value of Javonte is pressed on rest of season. So I don't mind it. Maybe I would ask for another piece in return, maybe a 2 for 2. But if you feel like opening up a roster spot is helpful for the upcoming waiver period, then that's fine. Slurms sends in a follow-up. Okay, I think we already answered this one before. This is the question. Sorry, let me be more specific. I'm trading Drake London for Jordan May. Yeah, that's fine. And DJ Moore. Okay. Is this a fair trade? I mean, is it a fair trade? I mean, it depends on what the rest of your roster looks like. Theoretically speaking, if you're trading away London and you're starting, if you get these 4 players and you theoretically can start 3 of the 4, then it's worth it. I think it's a fair trade at that point. Thank you. Luis says moves, ? 12 team, half PPR, 3 wide receivers. We have Drake, May, and Dak. Trade one of them. Specifically, probably trade Dak Prescott away because May has a week 14 bye and you can just keep rolling with him. Jalen Warren, Chase Brown, Woody Marks, Kenneth Walker, Justin Jefferson, Ibuka, Diggs, Juwan Jennings, Tez, Coker, Kittle, Fannin. So your tight end's solid. Your wide receivers are solid. RB needs an upgrade. I'm trying to move Dak. Go see what team in your league is RB needy and knock on the door and see if they want Dak Prescott and maybe one of your running backs in exchange for one of their better RBs. I think that's how I explore it. Thank you. Eric says PPR trade Bo Nix and Mason for Charbonnet or Charbonnet for Ibuka. If I was looking to potentially make one of these trades, yeah, I would be more likely to trade Nix and Charbonnet for Ibuka. Thank you. LZ7 says PPR. I'm in 5-2, pick 2 between Watson, Tez, Shaheed, and Leggett. These are the 2 most valuable for rest of the season and currently. Genuinely. Kenneth Williams, what's up, my man? Says, evening, Andrew. Garrett Wilson or Addison rest of the season? I'd rather have Garrett Wilson, genuinely. I think whether it is Justin Fields or Tyrod Taylor, he has proven to be of value. So, and I don't mean just regular value. I mean, he is proven to be a top 6 wide receiver this season. So I would assume that once he's healthy and back, I'll lean in that direction. Shad says, should I drop Fannin for Gadsden or Dalton Schultz? It would be for Gadsden. Mo Money says, Travion Henderson droppable for Algier, Brashard Smith, or Gadsden, full PPR. In the event in which you don't need the running back depth in the form of a Travion Henderson, then sure, he is droppable for any of those 3 for this week and or for rest of season purposes, assuming Travion Henderson's role continues to maintain as a truly backup running back. LZ7 follow-up says, PPR Barkley worth trading for, prepping for the playoffs. I mean, his upcoming schedule in the playoffs is relatively advantageous. If I'm not mistaken, he plays against Las Vegas. I think it's Las Vegas, Washington, and Buffalo. Let me see here. Eagles schedule. Yeah, so it is Las Vegas, Washington, Buffalo. The reason why I know that off the top of my head is because I do this for too many hours of the day. So in the event in which you're preparing for the fantasy playoffs, those are 3 advantageous matchups to where if you're like, Andrew, I'm sitting at a really solid record and I'm looking at the upcoming games at the final end of the stretch, like Chicago, Los Angeles Chargers, Las Vegas, Washington, Buffalo, I think Saquon could find himself a streak of success there. It's just, will he? That's the biggest question. Will he, or is this offense just going to continue to throw the ball for the remainder of the season because they just genuinely cannot open up holes for him to run through? Appreciate it, Elsie. Okay. Let's see here. We've caught up effectively on all these super chat questions. I appreciate you all sending those in, being patient. Your answer cut off for the last question between the pickup. Oh, sorry about that. I would pick up Tez Johnson and Rashid Shaheed out of those available options there, LZ. Thanks, man. All right, guys, let me go ahead and see what you guys have been typing in the live chat. My camera's been off this whole time, huh? That's crazy. Jeez. Okay, good to know. Good to know. Thank you very much. Did it just shut off? I think my battery may have just dipped out on me. I gotta order another one. Sorry about that, guys. 1 second. I think my dummy battery just gave out. I think it's just dead. What? There's no way. Hold up. And then my YouTube just crashed. Holy moly, my whole computer's dying. Oh no. It's all going out. All right, one moment, guys. Technical difficulties here. Trying to see if I can resurrect my camera effectively. Okay, well. I slammed the battery against the wall, and hopefully now it works. I think so. Hold up, guys. 1 second here. There we go. I think it should work now. Nope, it doesn't. Wow. Okay, one moment. Aha, there we go. All right. Jeez. All right, anyway, it's hot. The camera's overheating, the dummy battery's overheating, everything's overheating. It is what it is. I'm not going nowhere. I'm not fucking leaving. They're going to need an army to get me out of here. Okay, continuing on to answer questions. Coming back here. Thought you were being shy? No, my camera just... Look, here's the thing. I don't really look at myself when I'm streaming. I'm just looking at the questions, just trying to boom, 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 get through them. So yeah, I guess I disappeared for a couple seconds there, and I'm sure somebody let me know, but it's all good. Been like 10 minutes? You're joking. Okay, well, it is what... All right, whatever. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, we're back. We're back. That's all that matters. We're back. Okay, continuing on. We had a question that came in from Hooks. Said, I'm in desperation this year. I somehow ended up with 3 tight ends, Hawkinson, Taylor, and Henry. Fannin is on the waivers. Who do I drop for rest of season? I'd probably drop Henry for rest of season purposes. Thoughts on Pearsall and his potential, assuming he has health. And Brock Purdy at quarterback should be solid. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, let's see what we have here. David Ramos, been like 10. Okay, well, are you in darkness? I mean, geez, Louise. No, the camera just died because the battery died. That's literally it. We're good. We're back. Hope you guys are doing well. Let's answer some more questions here. Speaking of answering questions, I'm actually curious. Did the Lakers game end up starting here? Because that is what I'm curious about. I want to know how many points Luka has as of thus far. Game just started. First quarter, 11-12. Luka already has 5. Beautiful. Love to see it. All right, continuing on. All right, let's see here. Like 10 minutes. Yo, he was out for 10 minutes. Nobody said nothing. All right, let's see here. Should I trade Dak and Rico for Lamar Jackson in a standard league, 4-point per passing touchdown? It depends on what the rest of your running back looks like, Jay. Like, under the assumption that like Rico is an ancillary piece on your roster and he's like barely ever going to start, then sure, I make the move. Lights out fantasy provided by... Hey, Chauncey, I see you. Hey, listen, I like that. That was good. House of Cheese says, hey, Drew, got offered Swift and Olave for Jefferson. In need of running back, a depth for running back. Okay. Got offered Swift for Olave and Olave for Jefferson. I mean, look, here's the thought process. He also has A.J. Brown. I mean, look, I'd rather just have Jefferson for rest of season purposes. I mean, sorry. I see what you're saying. So we would ask for A.J. Brown and Swift. That would probably be the preferred. In the event in which he gives it to you, sure. In the event in which he doesn't, if you're super desperate for running back, then sure, we make it anyway. I want to trade for Lamb. Running backs are Bijan Robinson, Achane, Javonte Williams, Quinshon Judkins, Jordan Mason. Wide receivers are London, Rice, Evans, Marvin Harrison, and Shakir. Well, as of right now, if you wanted Lamb, I would assume that it's potentially possible if you send Judkins and Jordan Mason, that could potentially just seal the deal. Otherwise, you could send Javonte Williams and Quinshon Judkins, or Javonte Williams and Jordan Mason, or Achane Jordan Mason. Two running backs should seal the deal. If I'm in your position, I don't really think I'm moving London or Rice. I probably want to start them. I'd assume they're not interested in Marvin Harrison or Shakir. That's why I continue to suggest 2 running backs for Lamb. In the event in which they're taking Judkins Mason or Javonte Mason or Achane Mason, I don't mind that. That works for me. Do you think Bo Nix would kind of repeat against Dallas or go with Dart against the Eagles? I would hope that he can repeat. Obviously, he's not going to put up 40 fantasy points for another consecutive game here, but I'd hope that he could at least be somewhat relevant to the position to where he can be a top 10 option, but I think Dart is also going to be top 10. I like what Dart does consistently via rushing in comparison to Bo Nix, who only just sparingly recently been getting those rushing touchdowns. I'd lean towards Dart for now. Is Saquon cooked? The consensus or the current prognosis is yes. Do you see Kamara's value having a meaningful increase moving forward? I do, Julian. With Kendre Miller unfortunately sustaining a season-ending ACL injury, I think the vast majority of the acquired attempts will go in the direction of Kamara, and then the rest will be going towards Taysom Hill, who could get value here going forward. If Nico Collins can't play, which he may not because he's in the concussion protocol, and again, I've only ever seen it twice in the last decade of a wide receiver can clear concussion protocol in 1 week. Both times it's Marvin Harrison Jr. Not sure how he has accomplished that, but if he doesn't play, do I play DK or Adunze? I'd rather play Adunze as of right now. Half PPR drop Theo Johnson for Ingram, Jawan, Otten, or Loveland, or Muth. Order for a priority. I mean, look, if we're talking about this week in specific as a 1 week play, like Otten is the guy, but he goes on bye in week 9, to which then afterward, in terms of rest of season value, I would like to hope that Loveland is the guy or Jawan Jennings under the assumption that one of those 2 Saints receivers is sent to a team where they can help them win. But yeah, we'll see. That's kind of the 3 that I would go with for now. Otten, and then, of course, Loveland, Jawan Johnson. Jawan Johnson more likely to be of value this week rather than the rest of season purposes. Jorge Perez says, hi, Andrew. I'm in a full PPR. Currently have Purdy and Darnold. If Purdy doesn't play this week and quarterback is possibly in the flex, Flacco, Rodgers, or Mariota, I would rather have Flacco this week. And then if we're looking for a flex between these 3, I'd probably just... If it's a full PPR, Legette's probably the play out of those available options. Thanks. Appreciate it. Okay, where are we at here? Let's see. We've caught up ever so slightly, slowly but surely. Appreciate it. Eddie J, what's up, my man? Says, hey Andrew, Gadsden or Otten? I mean, Otten goes on a buy upcoming, then Godwin returns. I think the effective value of Otten is going to diminish in time. I think Gadsden is probably the way which I'm going to position myself. It says pick up Jalen Noel, Booty, or pick up Bourne. Since Tyler Lockett being cut yesterday, I think it opens up Noel to be a far more. I mean, no, sorry, that's not even the right team. Noel is actually right. Isn't he on the Texans? Hold up. Not Texans. Sorry, isn't he on the Titans? No, he is a Texan. That's what I thought. Okay, I was gonna say. I was like, I've confused myself. That's not the right guy. Sorry. Between these available, Christian Kirk's returning, so I'm not interested in that. So Keyshawn Booty and drop Bourne is probably the way going about it, considering Pearsall's probably going to return here. Dimes or Knicks? I'd rather have Knicks right now, especially considering Dimes has a running back that scores 3 touchdowns a week every week. Traded Olave, Chuba Hubbard for James Cook. Thoughts? I'm okay with that, considering Chuba Hubbard's value has pretty much just been siphoned away by Rico, Judkins, or Scat. I'd rather have Scat. Thank you. Alrighty, let's see here. Chan, what's up, my man? Chan says, trade Sutton and JCM for Judkins and Waddle. Oh, sorry, Wan'Dale Robinson. In terms of rest of season value, drop Waller for rest of season, Otten, Taylor, or Jawan. I mean, Taylor would be my suggestion for now. Do I want to send away Sutton and JCM for Judkins and Wan'Dale Robinson? Look, here's the reality. Like, JCM right now, not in a good position. If you need ample contributors right now and you're not looking for rest of season value, you would rather have this side in the short term. Perhaps JCM turns it around, but if he doesn't, this side probably blows it out the water. Thank you. Mo Money sends in a question. Thank you, Mo. Mo says the following. Pick up Trey Tucker, PPR. Is he top priority? Well, the only reason I didn't mention him is because I mentioned him like 4 weeks ago, and I've been subsequently mentioning him in my top 36 wide receivers, so I assumed he would already been picked up. But in the event in which you can pick him up, sure, I don't mind picking him up primarily because Jacoby Myers is soon to be traded. Then he would be the number one receiving option as a wide receiver. Obviously, the number one target in that offense will be Brock Bowers going forward. But Trey Tucker, I know he's going on by, but if he's available, yeah, I think he's got great rest of season value. Choose 2 out of 3, AK, JK, or Swift. Again, earlier today, I did drop my top 36 running back rankings video. If you guys haven't checked that out and want to hear my further thoughts on these individual players, you can check that out. In regards to your question, G, pedigree, I do have Alvin Kamara 13, DeAndre Swift 14, and J.K. Dobbins 16 as of this week. So you can go ahead, check out that video if you guys can. Even if you're potentially just going to look at the rankings, do me a favor, click the like button. It is greatly appreciated. That support, again, goes a long way. Let's see here. Trade Puka for Javonte and Ladd. I mean, if you're in like super desperate need for running back and this will suffice, then sure. Otherwise, trading away the number one wide receiver in fantasy is always going to be a tough one for me because he could very easily score 400 points this season and just carry your team to the promised land. But I guess if both these guys can contribute at a very similar or greater pace, then it could work. Theo had a touchdown fluke, but kind of wanted to roll with him. I mean, the issue is this week he plays against Philly, and they've been pretty solid against tight ends. So that's my only kind of concern there. Jacobs or Ibuka in a half PPR. If we're talking about rest of season, I'd probably rather have Jacobs. Just too much touchdown upside. Valk21 says Marks or JCM rest of season. I'd probably still lean towards JCM because Joe Mixon's still an unknown kind of commodity as to what his future is going to look like this season. Could come in at any given moment and take over the backfield. Caleb, Dart, or Purdy this week. I don't think Purdy plays, so if it's between Caleb and Dart, I'd rather play Dart there. Zandel. Full PPR bench is currently Ollie Gordon, Kirk. But Ollie Gordon could be dropped, by the way. Christian Kirk, okay. Brian Robinson, Coker can be dropped. Do they still hold value, or should I drop on the waivers to get Flacco and Leggett? Yeah, I would drop Coker and Ollie Gordon to get Flacco and Leggett. Thank you. Trade Judkins and Kittle for Puka? I would. Genuinely, I would. If you have enough running back depth and tight end depth to be able to accomplish this, it's a steal. 4-point per passing touchdown league. Trade away Josh Allen for Justin Jefferson and Quentin Johnston. Thank you. Yeah, I would. Absolutely, without a doubt. Just think about it in the form of like the value in the preseason. Josh Allen's a 3rd round selection. Justin Jefferson's a 1st. Quentin Johnston at the capacity which he's performed now again, it is probably like a 3rd or 4th round pick. Like at this point, the value at which you're getting in return here, assuming you have enough comparable value at quarterback, is definitely worth the go. Who would you pick up? Sorry, who would you pick, BTJ or Travis Hunter rest of season? I'll still lean towards BTJ. Travis Hunter slowly making a case for himself, though. But again, considering he plays so much defense, I just don't know if he's going to be there for enough of the offensive opportunities in some of those certain games. Hey, Andrew, I have Caleb as my quarterback, Mason Taylor and Mark Andrews are my tight ends. Should I use a first waiver for Bo Nix or Gadsden? I'd rather pick up Bo Nix in this situation. Thank you. PPR, Flex, Tedero, McMillan, Jordan Mason, or Vidal. I probably lean towards Jordan Mason. Earlier today, I talked about the effectiveness of running backs against the Chargers within the matchup. It's an automatic play there in my mind. Sorry, bro. My account is showing like a bot or something. What? I don't even know what that means. Let's see what your questions were. Swift, Stroud, and Ladd for Pitts, Derrick Henry, and Dak. Let's see here. So in terms of the value, Dak Prescott is more valuable than Stroud. Derrick Henry is more valuable than Swift. And yes, you are losing a little bit of value from Ladd to Pitts, but I would rather have Derrick Henry and Dak Prescott rest of season, Bo. That's the way that I'd go about it. Shad sends in a follow-up. Says Breece Hall or Rachaad White this week as my RB2. Taylor's my RB1. I would lean in the direction of Rachaad White for right now, primarily because I trust the offense more in comparison to what theoretically, even though the matchup is significantly better for Breece Hall, I just don't know if I trust the offense as a whole enough, but it wouldn't surprise me if he had a breakout game here, primarily because they play against Cincinnati. Hey, Andrew, Marks, Algier, Golden, or Flowers, full PPR. If I had to play one, I'm playing Flowers. Whether or not it is Lamar Jackson, even if it's Huntley, even if it's Cooper Rush, I'm playing Flowers there. Should I trade Dobbins for Kamara? You could. Again, I prefer Kamara, assuming it's a full PPR. I think that's kind of the direction that I'm leaning towards in this capacity. Okay, guys, I think that's what we're going to call it. I want to try to give my camera a little bit of a break here, considering it broke. Got to go ahead and hit Amazon up and try to order another dummy battery so this doesn't happen in the future. I do appreciate y'all coming through, asking questions in regards to week 8 waiver wire pickups. Again, we'll be back tomorrow with wide receiver rankings. We'll live stream tomorrow night as well. So if you have any questions, you can swing on by. Or of course, like I've mentioned before, if you have any questions for over the course of the week, you can check out the Patreon, sign up, ask me questions individually by clicking on the little messenger system, the little envelope. You can send me individual questions, waiver wire pickups, trade questions, all that kind of jazz. I'm more than happy to answer. You get Discord community server access that is privated to Discord community members of the Patreon. And then, of course, you get rankings every Thursday and every Sunday morning posted for half and full PPR. The same rankings you would get there, you can get here. But again, obviously, it's a subscription service. So if you're not interested in a subscription service, you can always check out Betr. Of course, by signing up today, you'll get those Sunday morning rankings sent from my email directly to yours. You guys know the gist. Be eligible, do the first time deposit, make the first time play with a real cash play, and you'll be eligible. That's pretty much it. I appreciate y'all. I'm going to answer a couple more questions here that were sent in via Super Chat, then we're going to close it out. Samaj says, PPR, no defense, 2 flex questions, comments. You're the man. Thank you. Okay, Samaj, let's see here. I'm going to wait for you to type that out until you do. Juan says, HN for Daniel Jones, Otten, and Flowers. I mean, that in itself is just like a very much so dependent question on what you have at quarterback, wide receiver, tight end. Otten, I think, is a fleeting commodity. I think Flowers is solid. I think Daniel Jones is solid, but I don't think it's worth trading HN in order to get those 3 in return. Personally, thank you. Samaj says, I have Daniel Jones, Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey. I have Debo, Garrett Wilson, Njoku, Otten, and Alec Pierce, Pinheiro. Bench is Michael Carter, Charbonnet, Montgomery. Who's that? Chris Moore, JSN Stafford, Mason Taylor, Pearsall. Should I trade Montgomery and possibly another player for Rashi? If you could somehow, some way trade for Rashi Rice, yes, you should immediately. If it's sending Debo, if it's sending Garrett Wilson, whatever it ends up being, if you can send one of those wide receivers in Montgomery in order to accomplish that, I think you're stealing it, and you should definitely accomplish that. Thank you. Appreciate it, my man. All right, guys, that'll be it for me today. Much love. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cue the one and only double helix. Have a great rest of your night, and I'll see you guys. Peace.